Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. I've got the amazing Titilayo here with me. She's all the way back. She's based in Nigeria, and she's going to talk to me about sickle cell and challenges of living with not just the challenges, but that would be one of the things, but things she's done to help shape other people's life while suffering with the disease. Titilayo, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And you?
I'm well. And honestly, I am well. I can't complain because it's a beautiful day today. So it's one of those
Oh,
things. I'm just absolutely grateful. I am well and feeling good in myself. And you?
I'm very well, very fine, thank you.
Great. Titilai, I've heard so many great things about you. This is one of the reasons I'm so delighted to talk to you. Before we start, can you tell me where I know you said we said you're in Nigeria. Where in Nigeria are you based?
I'm Ilorin Kwara State.
Okay. Okay, Kwara State. And people who don't know what part of Nigeria, would you say that is the north, not or south, mid? Where would you say what part of Nigeria would you say?
Okay, I would say it's in the north central part of Nigeria.
Okay, wow. I am so happy to talk to you today, and I'm so happy that we were able to get the connection because one of the difficulties I've been finding is having this communication is the internet connection, and you were able to succeed at that. Thank you.
So,
Titilaya, your story is amazing. Reading your bio, I get inspired by it because, as a sickle cell warrior, you're not living in pity. And we still have here those stories of people living in pity with themselves. Instead, you're taking on that chapter of actually helping other people. Before we dig into that, can you tell me a little bit about who is Titilaya Pearl?
okay, Titilayo is a girl. She's human and uh, a sickle cell warrior. I live with sickle cell, and I am, like I said, okay, I'm a Nigerian from Osun State, Nigeria, and I am okay. Starting from I've lived in Nigeria all my life, in the capital of Nigeria all my life, and I've had to do okay. I studied biology education at the University of Ilorin, and all through I am a sickle cell advocate, a passionate sickle cell advocate, and an entrepreneur.
Well, amazing. Could you tell us, you live in Nigeria and the condition I am in terms of weather is I find it very stable for people living with sickle cell. For you, how has living with sickle cell been for you as a child growing up?
Okay. For me, I got diagnosed of sickle cell at age 18.
18.
Yes, at
How is
18.
that possible?
Yeah, okay, because Nigeria, we're very religious people.
Yeah.
And then I came from a very religious background, and hospitals were never your first point of call for any illness. And then being that my dad was a pastor, and then, for every illness, it was either caused by, they believe that it was, caused by, some sort of spiritual attacks
Mm.
or some sort of maybe witchcraft or something. So I had to live the first 18 years of my life ignorant of the fact that I live with sickle cell. So as a person living with sickle cell, growing up in Nigeria and not knowing that I had sickle cell, it was quite difficult because I had to live those 18 years in pain. I had to live a life of degradation. I had to live a life of loneliness because nobody understood what was wrong. But we couldn't, go the medical way for that. So it was at 18 before I got diagnosed. So as a baby, I could not exactly say that I had sickle cell.
So all those while when you were going through pains as a child, when you were like 8, 10, no, growing up, 15, what did you think it was?
Okay, I come from the part of the country where it is believed that, there's always a sickly child in the family. There's
Mm,
always that child that falls sick. So I believed I was just that child.
mm, mm.
I was just that child falling ill. So I had to live with that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so when they decided at 18, what changed that they said, okay, let's figure out what is wrong with you. When did that change? When did that conversation change? And then now you now know you have sickle cell anemia. And are you HBSS?
HPS.
SC. So when did they then realize that you have HBSC?
Okay, it was never my parents that realized that I had to go to the hospital. I was at the College of Education then, far away from home, and I was reading just one day, and then it was, this kind of spiritual books, and you're reading, and it's talking about the Holy Spirit, and then I just looked up to the window, and then there was this flash of light directly to my eyes, and that was it. I could no longer see. So I was blind for some say 1 hour, and then I was staying with a family that was not, immediate family. So, and luckily for me, um, the mother in the family, she was a nurse, and then I had to go to the hospital. And it was after, series of, tests and series of tests and, questions that I was asked to go for a genotype test. After asking if my parents had to usually have, eye issues and all of that. It was until then that I was asked to do a genotype test. And I was far away from home. If I was home at that point, possibly my parents would have, prayed it off, who knows. But then we had to, go to the hospital because I was far away from home. And that was I was diagnosed of sickle cell. And in my case, what happened then was sickle cell retinopathy.
Wow. So when they told you you have sickle cell anemia, um, what was your immediate reaction? Did you have flashback about, was this the reason I was going through all this pain, or were you just kind of relieved that finally why you were suffering all this while?
Okay. It was a lot of questions flashed through at that point. Like you said, this is why I've always been healed. A lot of questions came through. This is why I've always been healed. Why sickle cell? Amazingly, I was a science student in secondary school. And though the genotype topic was treated, but it was not as serious. So when I was told that I had the SC type, it did not exactly, come to me as sickle cell, honestly, at that point, till I went to another doctor. But what I noticed was the whole atmosphere was quiet. From the lab scientist giving me my results to the doctor saying you have the SC genotype, from everything was quiet. And so those were the things that brought the question. And then the doctor said, was your parents' mistake? And then the doctor said it was your parents' mistake and all of that. So, the questions that flashed through was, okay, if my parents did not make a mistake, I wouldn't be born. You know, all of this, were the questions that actually flew through at that point.
Mm, yeah, no, I agree. Sometimes that because I'm HBSS, and
Mm,
that also flashes through my mind because people always say it's your parents' mistake, they didn't know. But at the same time, I always think the same thing. I think the same thing Titilayo you go through is the same issue I go through. Is that if they didn't make that mistake, would I been born, or would I been able to have this voice that helps others?
yeah.
So,
But I exist.
yeah, exactly. So I feel you on that one because it's something I struggle with daily, all the time. But as I got older, I've come to accept it. I'm really proud of you and how you've dealt with sickle cell. But once you knew you had sickle cell, for example, when in your teens, how did that affect you with how you dealt with life? Because it's one thing you're not knowing, and the way you deal with things is just like, okay, I'm sick, I'm just gonna rest. But when you now knew you had sickle cell, how did your transformation, how did your mindset change? Because now you know why you're sick. So how did you deal with it?
Okay. Yeah. With revelation, comes, being careful, comes, sometimes revelation, it could be, difficult. Sometimes revelation brings you to, We used to say sometimes in Nigeria, when you become aware of some things, they begin to happen, at the point of revelation for me, for the first few months, I became terribly sick. I don't know if it was caused by, my thought of these things or reminding myself of every illness I had growing up.
Mm.
But, now being aware of what I was, it helped me to approach my illness better, from the angle of treatment,
Mm.
especially.
Yeah.
Before then, it was until after 1 week before my dad begins to think of, okay, let's get her fever dose, like we call it, fever dose. But from them, I began to, from being aware, I began to, attend to my health better. I began to read more, about, okay, why was I different? And then the doctor saying my type of sickle cell was rare, that okay, everybody's used to hearing of the SS, and then the doctor said my kind of sickle cell was rare. I needed to know more. So with awareness came, research for me, came better, attitude. I was more intentional about my, about treatment. I was more intentional about what I did with my body. That
Mm.
was being intentional about everything about my health.
Yeah, that, I agree because they always say diagnosis is the hardest bit, but once you're diagnosed, it's now easier to manage yourself because now you know and you start researching what can I do and what can I not do, and then this is the reason that I get sick. But what fascinates me is that you have this illness and you struggle with it, finding out what was wrong with you. But that didn't stop you from going on to set up I think you set up this advocacy group that where you help other people who are going through the same challenges you. Titilayo, this is amazing that you had that initiative. What led you to say, I am not stopping here. I want to help other people going through this challenge?
Okay. Firstly, I always say my story. Late diagnosis was the reason I started. And when I started, I didn't want to do a full blown, NGO thing. I just wanted to, get people around me start to get diagnosed very early. That was just it for me. What led to it was what, like I said, was my story, late diagnosis, and because I didn't want people suffering. Since after diagnosis, whenever I see a child sick, what comes to my head is, do you know this child's genotype? So I wanted a lot of people, I wanted everybody to know their genotypes, way before it was, way before time, way before, it becomes really deep. Like for me, I currently live with one eye still. After I surgery, I'm able to see with just the right eye till now. So, and that was caused by late, attention to that. So I didn't want people to have to struggle with, consequences of late diagnosis of sickle cell. So all I wanted to do was create awareness about sickle cell. Just let everybody, I just wanted to talk to immediate family. I wanted to talk to friends. I wanted to tell them about sickle cell. I wanted to tell them about getting tested. And then because of, those 18 years of my life, being lonely, not understanding what was wrong with me. Even my friends in school just felt I was just always falling ill and she won't come to school tomorrow. I didn't want that for other children. And that was why I started my story basically.
I'm so inspired by your story and I'm so inspired by what you're doing for others. And I really motivate you to keep doing this because, what you said is absolutely right. If you're not diagnosed on time, you never know the consequences of it. And you've seen that consequences from your own, from your own pain you've gone through by like by losing the left eye, right? Which is,
Yes,
I don't
I
know.
currently use the right eye, so I lose the left eye to retinopathy.
Say that's just because of that late diagnosis. If not, they would have had the proper care in place for place for you. How have you managed to find joy through all of this?
Okay, finding joy, I think comes from the mind for me. It comes from the mind because daily living with sickle cell, you have to live with pain. If not, physical pain, you know, the pain that comes with, stigma and everything that happens around. I try to find joy by, helping others. And I find joy doing that. like a whole lot. Just saying that one more person is knowing their genotype, one more person is being intentional about knowing their genotype gives me so much joy. Like, I'm talking to, people who have been dating for years and then they probably never knew anything about genotypes and they're very close to having more children with sickle cell. And seeing that I talk to them and then after hearing my story, they are making the right decision towards, putting a stop, to more sickle cell births gives me so much joy. I always say if it's just one more person that would not have one more child with sickle cell, it's a whole lot for me. And I find joy doing sickle cell advocacy more than anything. And that's why even my business, I make sure that it is in the line of sickle cell. So all that I do, I make sure that my business funds the organization in certain ways. So everything I do is around sickle cell because that gives me so much joy.
I'm truly proud of you. Keep this good work. In my final question, what would be your hopes? I know you said helping and everything, but in terms of the bigger picture of sickle cell in our country, Nigeria, what would be your hope for sickle cell in Nigeria?
Okay. Firstly, it is terrible that Nigeria has the highest number of people living with sickle cell in the world. And that is really terrible, for a country with a lot of, elites, educated people, professionals, and that is terrible. So for me, the bigger picture will be Nigeria, you know, being at the end of the list when it comes to, statistics as to having the number of sickle cell beds in the world. That's the bigger picture. Also, Nigeria has, when it comes to stigma, uh, Nigeria records a lot of stigma in different areas, even from the family, maritally. Personally, I faced all of these things, in different fronts. The bigger picture for me would be a sickle cell enlightened world. So everything I envision is, a sickle cell enlightened world. So wanting a sickle cell free Nigeria comes under a sickle cell enlightened world. Wanting a stigma free society for people living with sickle cell. And also medical care, for people who already live with the disorder. Pain management is very terrible in Nigeria. I believe that one day it will be better. I believe that one day I will be able to, stand at the forefront of a better pain management system for those who already live with disorder.
Wow. Titilayo, anyone who wants to support your organization, how do they find you? What's the best way to contact you? Is there
Okay, we're on social media platforms across Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as Pell Sickle Cell Initiative. Instagram especially, and we could also be, contacted, to our phone line.
that is
That's it.
amazing. Well, I am absolutely delighted. Every time I talk to a fellow sickle cell warrior, it gives me so much joy because I learn every day I talk to you guys, I learn more and more. I learn more that can be done, more that needs to be done, and I also appreciate that there's so many of us, but I'm so glad that we are starting to speak and find our voice. Thank you. Just before I let you go, just a quick question regarding the coronavirus. How has that affected dealing with sickle cell?
Okay. It firstly came as a shock when we were listed as extremely vulnerable when it comes to contracting the coronavirus.
Yeah.
And some of the symptoms of coronavirus are things that we had to live with. So it meant that we had to, I mean, greatly for me, I worked for myself, so it wasn't difficult, struggling with work or your boss and all of that. But coronavirus for me was the fear of contracting coronavirus because during that period, a lot of sickle cell warriors were still falling ill, like
Mm,
terribly.
mm,
So I had to go to the hospital. We have a
mm.
lot of sickle cell warriors, under our healthcare scheme. For me, coronavirus affected work for a lot of our sickle cell warriors.
Okay.
It was a lot of our sickle cell warriors went into depression because of loneliness.
Mm,
you know, Mostly because, okay, probably they were being fed at work. As in, when I'm talking of being fed, they had all the support at work. probably because they stayed at home. So a lot of sickle cell warriors at that time had to face, loneliness extremely. So I was, it was a burden for me because they were always reaching out and I couldn't do so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't do so much. So it was more of what people had to face because for me, it was just the fear of, contracting the virus and I knew what best to do. So it was for other people, seeing other sickle cell warriors had to go through a lot. If that answered the question.
Yeah, it did answer. Thank you so much, Titilayo. You are truly amazing. I keep shining, keep doing what you're doing. And
Thank you.
honestly, I would definitely see how one could work together with you because this is amazing work you're doing in helping spread the awareness for people with sickle cell. Stay well, and I totally wish you well. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.